So I'm here today with Ben Flavel, and Ben's been an innovator in a number of different incarnations since I came to know him. I met him as he was an innovation manager in a large corporate, and we were working on innovation keynotes. He was in a bit of demand for people wanting to find out, what does an innovation manager do? And you developed a terrific keynote and a terrific focus on recognising that innovation is all around translating a business case.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I struggled with business case, I rang Ben and went, can you help me out and do it? Because you're a master at translating innovation and running business cases. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so when you're working within a company, obviously it's important to get the idea into and frame it as an opportunity.
Okay.
But then as you work that through the company, different people speak different languages.
Okay.
So the finance team will only think in numbers. And
Surprise.
I reported to a CFO, so it was important that I translate the opportunity into numbers for him. Whereas the manufacturing guys just want to know how it works. They just want to know how, like, the inputs for it. And so you need to translate it into that. That's a couple of examples.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's important that you have somebody within the company that takes all the way from idea to final development, so that there can be a common thread through that whole translation process.
And that's not a job for everybody, is it?
No, it's not. And I'm not sure whether it's a job for me. But
Tell me about that. Tell me why that. I mean, notwithstanding that, because you are incredibly entrepreneurial. You're a founder yourself.
Yes.
And you were a founder before someone said, we really need you in our company.
Yeah. Well, actually, when my wife was 5 months pregnant, I quit my job to start an innovation consulting firm, so that I could support a startup, because we had a really good startup idea. So I worked on that for a number of years, and I continued with the consulting, and then I actually consulted to this company that I ended up working for.
Right.
And I recommended that they create the innovation manager role because I'd worked with a number of other manufacturing companies, and I'd gone in sort of 6 months after I'd left, and nothing had ever happened because it was left on somebody's desk.
Yeah.
So I recommended they create the role. They took my advice, and then 10 months later, I was selling my startup and looking for something else, and heard that they'd created, they'd taken on that role, and I actually wrote the job description for it. So it was like, okay, that's the only role I would go back into the workforce for.
Yeah.
However, they're a very conservative company, so they've got a very conservative culture. So they said they wanted somebody to come in and shake things up, but that's not what they really wanted, and they weren't quite ready for it. So, I was working on a number of projects that would take them into new markets, and that scared them.
So we can think about this. There's probably people watching and listening who are part of quite conservative companies. And if you think about it, there's been a whole lot of discussion about innovation and government needing to be more innovative, and they're reasonably conservative as well.
Yeah.
What bridges that gap that allows someone to come in as an innovation manager and really get some results? Not necessarily what were they missing, because it's quite specific, but what do you think, whether it's other conservative companies or whether it's our government, what are the things that they could be doing now that would make a difference?
They just need to be open to change.
That's easier said than done.
Yeah. So I mean, this company that I worked for, they just weren't willing to change. So, to try and get a cross-functional team to work on an innovation project was basically impossible because there was no incentive for them to do that. The management said, well, they shouldn't have to have an incentive to work on those projects. However, on the flip side, these are sales guys, they're getting hammered to make sales. So, I'd ask them, what would it take to get you to work on a project? And they're like, well, if I've got a couple of hours spare, I'm going to spend it on the phone to clients because I've got targets to reach. So there has to be an incentive, and it doesn't necessarily need to be monetary, but I was banging my head up against a brick wall with that. And the other thing is that you need a champion in the organisation to champion innovation. I think they expected me to be that champion, and I was doing my hardest to do that. However, I didn't have any authority over anybody else in the company, and so that's why it didn't really make any sense that I was reporting to the CFO and not to the managing director.
Okay.
It just didn't make any sense, because the managing director was client-facing, employee-facing. He could champion me across the company. He could champion me across other companies as well, like with partnerships and whatever. Whereas the CFO was really, he was just...
Because innovation's all about risk, isn't it? I mean, and it's about managing risk. Has having stepped into corporate, and then there's going to be plenty of people sitting in corporate who thinking I might step back out, because you were going to sell CheckInline, and now you've rebranded. Can you talk about your rebranding yet?
Yeah. So, I can.
Yeah.
Because I actually had a meeting yesterday about this.
That's exciting. Hot off the press.
So the whole thing around CheckInline is it's an online queuing system for high demand events and tickets and things like that. So I took that to the US because there's a lot more ticketing companies over there. However, ticketing companies are big behemoths that don't move quickly on anything.
Don't like change.
Right? Yes, they don't. Well, they like change, but they like to talk about change.
Okay.
But there's
a theme happening here.
Yeah, but they don't generally work with third parties.
Okay.
Right. So they generally like to keep things in house, which is why I kind of put it up for sale.
Yeah.
And I went down the path of that, and then got frustrated at the very end. However, then my developers who developed CheckInline on sweat equity, great guys, they then came back to me and said, well, we think we should rebuild it on the blockchain. And the more and more we thought about it was like, okay, it's actually made for the blockchain. And so now there's new energy behind it, and we're going to take that to ICO, but it's called Fair Access.
Fair Access.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Looking forward to hearing more about it.
Yeah.
So then going back to you had, it's almost like there was two separate ages. I mean, pre-blockchain and post-blockchain for you.
Yeah.
But coming out of corporate and then stepping back into founder world.
Yeah.
So you're now a founder of an accelerating venture.
Yep.
What were some of the great things that you took from corporate, or what would you recommend people would learn while they're sitting in a corporate role, thinking they want to come out and run something? What are some of the skills that they could actively challenge themselves? Yeah.
Okay. Well, one thing was just around the politics. So.
No, companies don't have politics, do they?
No, I think they probably do. So understand who you're working with and what motivates them, and then work your strategies around that. So, but I mean, I was a little bit different because I was trying to, progress opportunities, different innovations. Whereas somebody might be in corporate world and they get given a list of tasks and whatever. But it's important to manage up as well as manage down. But I'm probably not telling anything anybody else knows.
No, but how do you translate those into? So you've come back out, and now you're working on Fair Access. Fair Access. Thank you.
Yeah.
What's some of the silver lining of that you've learned over the last couple of years by stepping back into corporate world and now coming back out again? Apart from meeting me.
So I met you.
And some other amazing people.
Look, I mean, it was really good to work with an established group of people who had been there for a number of years, and but on the flip side of that, they were very comfortable.
Yeah.
However, it was good to step into a place where people knew each other. They knew how each other worked.
You weren't constantly trying to sell something to somebody.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you get a paycheck every month.
Well, that's always nice.
So that was always that was nice.
Yes.
But you know, if I was to go into a corporate again, I would spend a lot more time in the lead up to accepting the job, learning more about the culture and more about what made them tick, and more about their core purpose than I did with this role. Because really, that role came along at the perfect time, and I knew the company, and I knew they had a lot of potential, and you know, I thought I could go in there and you know, really shake things up, but just a very comfortable culture. So you're kind of clashing with that, you know. I was a little bit of a fish out of water.
Yeah, well, I mean, innovation in a traditional company, and I've said this before a number of times, it tends to threaten the very purpose and bottom line of a company.
Yep.
So then from there, so you've experienced founder world entrepreneurship, pitching to sell companies, now corporate, and I know you're going to make a success of what you're doing now. But then talk to me about consulting. Why would people consider? Why would a managing director or you know, a GM who's thinking about stepping into innovation, are they better off working with a consultant for a short period of time first?
I think definitely.
Bridge the gap?
I think definitely. I mean, if they haven't had an innovation manager in there, in that role, or an innovation department, then definitely they should be doing a consultant, because, you know, and they may. I mean, I've experienced this in the past where they say, okay, well, why don't you come in and run a couple of workshops, and then you'll run those workshops, and then you'll go back and say, okay, how did that go? And say, oh, they haven't really taken it and run with it, you know. And it's like, what do you expect after a couple of workshops, you know? So a consultant being embedded in the company, you know, where there's frequent contact points between the company and collaborating with the consultancy for a period of time, like it might be 6 months or 12 months, would definitely be, I'd definitely advise that before they go full on into, you know, hiring somebody as their innovation manager. Because there are a lot of really great consultancy firms out there who have expertise in exactly what they want, what the company wants to bring in.
So are there different, I mean, do different consultancies focus on, of course different consultancies focus on different things. Are there 3 or 4 broad types of consultants? If you've got somebody listening and they're thinking, well, okay, but I want to get involved in innovation, I don't know where to start. Is there a particular style of consultancy? What questions should they be asking?
Oh, geez.
That's a tough question.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Well, I think they should be asking themselves, do I want skills training, or do I have ideas already? Do I want to create some ideas?
Okay.
Do I want my team to be skilled up in how to convert those ideas into an opportunity, or do I want somebody who's going to hold our hand along the way and teach them as they go? And I think
so. Depending on where they are in the cycle, it depends on the style of consultancy that they would look
exactly.
for.
I mean, if they're struggling for ideas, well then, you know, the consultancy firm would go in and run an ideation workshop and start bringing those ideas to the fore, and then progress down the path of, okay, well, we've got an idea, that's great, but we need to turn that into something tangible and something real, and get some sort of a lean startup type approach to this, so that we can progress it.
So there's a lot of people saying the word innovation is done, finished, overdone maybe.
Yep.
What do you think?
I think it's a great word.
So do I.
I think, and this has been interesting because I've been looking at various job descriptions of late.
Yep.
Right. And innovation gets thrown around a lot, not in the right place. You know, there was a job that was that they sprouted, you know, innovation manager, but what they were really looking for was a project manager to manage their software product. You know, so they weren't really looking for an innovation manager. So it's like okay, well, you're sort of using innovation in the wrong context there. But I think used in the right context, the innovation is an exceptional word.
Well, there you have it. That is innovation, according to Ben Flavel. Hey, thanks. I really love talking to you. I'm so excited to see what journey you're going to have, both with your own projects and in consulting world and back in corporate world and back in Phantom. I just know we're going to be having all of these amazing conversations as time goes on. But I'm really grateful to you and thanks for sharing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So this is Ben, one of my favourite Bens, and we're really grateful to him. So we'll see you again next time, or you'll be able to hear from us next time on the Innovation Show.